All right, so this is the Unit 8 test. Question number 1. Which of the following would accurately fit into the graphic organizer? A, the elastic clause, B, poll taxes, C, the 15th Amendment, or D, Americanization. Number 2. Which of the following would not support this generalization? The United States won the Civil War but lost Reconstruction. A, African Americans in the South were prevented from voting because of poll taxes. B, the economy of the South remained dependent on cotton and sharecropping. C, the 14th Amendment guaranteed equality of all citizens, black and white. D, Jim Crow laws established a permanent system of segregation and discrimination in the South. Number 3. Following the end of the Civil War, the United States government attempted to create and improve the economic stability of the South. These efforts were directed to help both former slaves and landowners. Which of the following statements most accurately describes the economic situation in the South after the Civil War? A, sharecropping and tenant farming made economic opportunities for poor whites. B, landless freedmen and poor whites entered a cycle of poverty due to sharecropping and tenant farming. C, land owned by large plantations were confiscated and given to freedmen. D, sharecropping was beneficial to freedmen while tenant farming benefited planters. Number 4. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Using the quote above to help answer the question, which of the following principles established in the Declaration of Independence was most closely related to the 14th Amendment? A, the principle that citizens have the right to rebel against an unjust government. B, the principle that citizens have the right to express their anger at their government. C, the principle that all men are created equal. D, the principle that the government has the power to limit voting rights of citizens. Number 5. At the end of the American Civil War, the agriculture-based economy of the South was devastated as a result of destruction from the war and the ratification of the 13th Amendment. This resulted in many landowners in need of laborers to work their land and freedmen in need of an income. Many Southern landowners were unable to pay laborers till their crops were sold at the market at the end of the growing season. What impact did this have on both freedmen and landowners during Reconstruction? A, they trusted their former masters and did not want to leave their homes. B, land was returned to former landowners, therefore freedmen had limited economic opportunities. C, the freed slaves were forced to remain on plantations by the 13th Amendment. D, sharecropping provided a good source of income. Number 6. The above map depicts the percent of farms in former Confederate states that began to rely on the system of sharecropping. The darker the region on the map, the higher percentage of farms that practice sharecropping as a means to produce cotton. Based on your knowledge of the sharecropping system, which of the following statements about the South was true? A, the South became the center for industry for the United States. B, majority of southern states still relied on producing cotton in the system of sharecropping. C, the South was banned from producing cotton under the Wade-Davis Bill. D, a small percentage of southern states participated in sharecropping due to the lack of labor source. Number 7. One of the economic goals of Reconstruction was to diversify the agriculture-based economy of the southern states. The South's dependence on production of cotton was a major cause of the American Civil War. With the abolition of slavery, the South would no longer be able to rely on a single crop to support the region. To what extent did the South achieve the economic goal of Reconstruction? A, both the North and the South began to depend more on industrialization by the end of the 19th century. B, the South developed more industries than the North because there were more workers in the South. C, the South remained dependent on cotton and agriculture while the North became industrialized. D, the North and the South offered economic opportunities to poor blacks and whites. Number 8, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution were passed during Reconstruction. Which of the following events show the failure of Reconstruction when it pertains to those prospective amendments? A, opportunity to buy land, protection of civil rights, black men voted. B, relied on sharecropping, Jim Crow laws, literacy tests. C, ended slavery, guaranteed voting rights for all, protected equal rights. D, black women could vote, black men could vote, freed slaves could own land. Number 9, the political, economic, and social success of Reconstruction is often debated by historians. Opposition to Reconstruction efforts were seen in many Southern states. What is an example of Southern states attempting to limit the rights of African Americans participating in elections after the ratification of the 15th Amendment? A, the 14th Amendment, B, the creation of the Grandfather Clause, C, Freedmen's Bureau, or D, election of the first African American politicians? Number 10, opposition to Reconstruction laws was seen throughout many Southern states in the years following the Civil War. The enforcement of laws became central to the political, social, and economic success of Reconstruction. Which of the following conditions was necessary for this group of representatives to be elected to Congress? A, the military was stationed in the South to ensure voting rights for African Americans. B, only African Americans were allowed to be elected to Congress during Reconstruction. C, the Grandfather Clause was created to ensure fair voting procedures in the South. D, only the North allowed blacks to be representatives in Congress. Number 11, as Southern states began to re-enter the Union, a division quickly emerged in American politics. Support for the Republican Party was seen in almost all Northern states. This was the result from the support for former President Abraham Lincoln and Reconstruction laws. In contrast, many Southern states began to vote for the Democratic Party. This division led to the Democratic Party to control many Southern states and local governments. What phrase or nickname was given to the Democratic Party's control over the South? A, radical Republicans, B, scalawag, C, solid South, or D, a carpetbagger? Number 12, the economic stability of freedmen was an economic goal of Reconstruction. Creating different ways for recently freed slaves to become financially independent was a challenge to the agriculture-based economy of the South. Which agency pictured to the right was probably responsible for the school that was set up during Reconstruction? A, the 10% Organization, B, the Freedmen's Bureau, C, the Civil Rights Organization, or D, the Wade Davis Bureau? Number 13, prior to the end of the Civil War in April of 1865, President Lincoln began to devise a plan for Reconstruction. Lincoln believed that the responsibility for reuniting the country would be his. Lincoln understood that there would be opposition to the reunification of Southern states from both members of Congress and citizens of the South. Which of the below statements most closely reflects the intentions of Lincoln for Reconstruction? A, teach the South a harsh lesson by punishing them. B, ensure a simple process reestablishing the Union with trust and peace called the 10% Plan. C, give power over Reconstruction to Congress. D, appoint a joint commission from the South and the North to settle the issue. Number 14, many Reconstruction efforts of the United States government was met with opposition in Southern states and local governments. The enforcement of federal laws in Southern states quickly became a challenge that was almost impossible to achieve in all cities and towns across the Southern states. This challenge was complicated with the passing of black codes that went against federal laws. What was the purpose for the creation of the black codes in the South? A, regulate the conduct of government officials in the South. B, monitor the activity of Confederate leaders. C, restrict the economic and social lives of freedmen. D, give economic assistance to black Southerners. Number 15. The task of creating a federal plan for Reconstruction quickly created a division in the government. This was first seen between President Abraham Lincoln and the radical Republicans in control of Congress. The United States Constitution does not identify any regulations with regards to readmitting states into the Union following the Civil War. How did the radical Republicans' view of Reconstruction differ from President Lincoln's? A, they thought the North should be forced to pay back all the debts to the South. B, they thought the South should be readmitted into the Union easily. C, they wanted all Confederate generals pardoned immediately. D, they wanted the South to be punished and were going to make it difficult for the South to be readmitted into the Union. Number 16. As a result of opposition to Reconstruction Acts and the establishment of black codes in the South, Congress continued to take action against unreconstructed Southern states. What action of Congress is depicted in the above map to combat Southern opposition? A, it shows that Congress placed military troops in the South to enforce laws. B, it shows that Congress wanted to make it as easy for the Southern states to rejoin the Union. C, it shows that Congress supported allowing Southern states to control their own affairs in Reconstruction. D, it shows that Congress believed Reconstruction policy was the job of the president. Number 17. That so soon as the military resistance to the United States shall have been suppressed in any such state, and the people thereof shall have sufficiently returned to their obedience to the Constitution and the laws of the United States, the provisional governor shall direct the marshal of the United States, as speedily as may be, to name a sufficient number of deputies, and to enroll all white male citizens of the United States resident in the state in their respective counties, and to request each one to take the oath to support the Constitution of the United States. Using the quote above to answer this question, which of the following was Congress's plan for Reconstruction of the South, which was pocket vetoed by Lincoln and required a majority, over 50% of former Confederates, to take an oath of allegiance to the Constitution and the Union? A, the Tenure of Office Act. B, the Amnesty Act. C, the Reconstruction Act of 1867. D, the Wade-Davis Bill. Number 18. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States, hold States of America in Congress assembled, that every person holding any civil office to which he had been appointed by, and with the advice of any office to hold the consent of the Senate, the Secretary provided that the Secretaries of State, of Treasury, of Navy, of Interior, of Postmaster General, and the Attorney General shall hold their offices respectfully for and during the term of President by whom they have been appointed, and for 1 month removal thereafter, subject to removal by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. Using the above quote to answer the following question, the reason Andrew Johnson was impeached was because the radical Republicans said that he was in violation of what law that said cabinet members could not be removed during the term of the presidency without approval of the Senate. A, the Tenure of Office Act. B, the Amnesty Act. C, the Reconstruction Act of 1867. D, the Wade-Davis Bill. Number 19. By all accounts, the northern men who leased plantations were an unsavory lot, attracted by the quick profits seemingly guaranteed in wartime cotton production. In the scramble among army officers, illegally engaged in cotton deals and northern investors seeking to pluck the golden goose of the South, the rights of blacks received scant regard. Eric Foner on Reconstruction. Number 19. Based on the image depicted here and the above quote, what is the term commonly used to describe citizens who migrated from the north to the south? A, carpetbaggers. B, scalawags. C, copperheads. D, sharecroppers. Number 20. Books shall not be interchangeable between the white and colored schools, but shall continue to be used by the race first using them. North Carolina Jim Crow law. Based on the above quote, what was the effect of Jim Crow laws? A, it separated races in public facilities. B, it expanded rights for minorities. C, it improved race relations in the South. D, the enfranchisement of freedmen. Number 21. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the law. Which of the following guaranteed citizenship for freedmen? A, the 13th Amendment, B, the 14th Amendment, C, the 15th Amendment, or D, the 19th Amendment? Number 22. Which of the following is not part of the election of 1876? A, the Republican Rutherford B. Hayes won the electoral vote, but not a majority. B, the Compromise of 1877 in Congress settled the election. C, Democratic votes were given to Hayes to end Reconstruction. D, the Democrat Samuel Tilden won the presidency in a landslide. Number 23. Reconstruction efforts from the federal government did win some support for the Republican Party from white Southern voters. This was the result of programs to help rebuild the Southern economy and create stability in areas that were devastated by the Civil War. Support for the Republican Party was not accepted by many Southerners who opposed the efforts of the federal government to reconstruct Southern states. What name was given to white Southerners who supported the Republican Party in Reconstruction? A, carpetbaggers, B, scalawags, C, copperheads, D, Democrats. Number 25. Reconstruction is the time period after the Civil War from 1865 to 1877. The beginning of Reconstruction is marked with the conclusion of the American Civil War. The end of Reconstruction and the debated failure is connected with the election of 1876. President Hayes took office after a highly controversial election where 20 electoral votes were disputed. The reason for his victory became known as the Compromise of 1877. What impact did this compromise have on Reconstruction? A, Union troops occupied the South for 100 years, maintaining rights for freedmen. B, Southern states were very upset with the compromise as it was thought of as unfair. C, Union troops were pulled out of the South, allowing Jim Crow laws to exist. D, generals made sure that they continued to occupy the South. Number 26. Throughout American history, disagreements and tension between Congress and the sitting president have caused controversies over legislation. One such example is between the 39th Congress and President Andrew Johnson. Already under skepticism for his 10% plus Reconstruction plan, Johnson continued to cause issues, especially in regards to the rights for freedmen. Which of the following best describes the event? A, radical Republicans' reluctance to give rights to freedmen. B, the passing of the Tenure of Office Act into law. C, Andrew Johnson's veto of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. D, Andrew Johnson's plan to allow the Wade-Davis bill to pass in Congress. Number 27. The Ku Klux Klan, or KKK, was originally founded as a social club for former Confederate soldiers. Over time, the political and social climate of the U.S. during Reconstruction, coupled with racial prejudice, morphed the KKK into a terrorist organization. In a letter from a Klansman to Davy Jeames, a black Republican from Lincoln County, Georgia, the ghost of a Confederate soldier who was killed at Manassas in 1861 says he is now living as a locust and was there to make sure Jeames knew his place. This letter, like many others, was sent in the late 1860s and early 1870s, was sent to limit Jeames and other freedmen's right to A, receive equal pay for working on plantations, B, participate in government by voting, C, become wealthy sharecroppers, D, receiving 40 acres and a mule. Number 28. In a speech, Hiram Revels once stated, "I stand today on this floor to appeal for protection from the strong arm of the government for her loyal children, irrespective of color and race, who are citizens of the southern states, and particularly the state of Georgia." Based on the above direct quote, why is Hiram Revels significant? A, he was the first African American to join the military as an officer. B, he was the first African American elected to Johnson's cabinet. C, he was the first African American elected to Congress. D, he was the first African American to openly fight against the Ku Klux Klan. Number 29. If liberty with us is yet but a name, our citizenship is but a sham, and our suffrage thus far only a cruel mockery. We may yet congratulate ourselves upon the fact that the laws and institutions of the country are sound, just, and liberal. There is hope for a people when their laws are righteous, whether for the moment they conform to their requirements or not. But until this nation shall make its practice accord with its constitution and its righteous laws, it will not do to reproach the colored people of this country with keeping up the color line, for that people would prove themselves scarcely worthy of even theoretical freedom, to say nothing of practical freedom if they settled down in silent, servile, and cowardly submission to their wrongs, from fear of making their color visible. Which of the following individuals most likely made this speech? A. Radical Republican in Congress. B. African Americans from the South. C. Southern White Democrat. Or D. Andrew Johnson. Number 30. By 1863, the Civil War had raged on for 2 years, and it became apparent that President Lincoln would need to create some type of plan for Reconstruction. Though the war itself would not reach a conclusion for almost 2 more full years, the Union Army had already taken control of large sections of the South, and some states' governments were ready to be rebuilt. Lincoln's plan to rebuild the Union included all of the following except A. 10% of the population had to take an oath of allegiance to the United States. B. 50% of the population had to take an oath of allegiance to the United States. C. Southern states had to restructure their governments, including an acknowledgement to the end of slavery. D. Everyone except major Confederate leaders would receive amnesty for their part in the Civil War. Number 31. The 1850s is often referred to as a decade of crisis. During this time period, the Dred Scott v. Sanford Supreme Court decision took away constitutional rights of all African Americans. During Reconstruction, the Supreme Court decision from Dred Scott was removed with what government action? A. The writ of habeas corpus. B. Tenant farming. C. The 14th Amendment. D. The 15th Amendment. (32) Using the image, how were African Americans that tried to vote dealt with after Reconstruction was over? A. They were allowed to vote because the South took an oath to uphold the 15th Amendment. B. They were encouraged to vote and protected by state governments. C. They were intimidated so that they would not vote. D. They were asked to provide a voter identification card. Number 33. The radical Republicans in Congress believed that freedmen were entitled to the same political and civil rights as white men. While Lincoln and Congress agreed on the political, social, and economic goals of Reconstruction, they differed on how to achieve these goals. This was demonstrated when President Lincoln blanked the Wade Davis bill because he believed blank of the voting population of the South would not take the ironclad oath of loyalty. The radical Republican plan for Reconstruction required what percentage of Southerners to take an oath of allegiance to rejoin the country? So is it A, signed and 10%, B, passed 25%, C, pigeonhole 50%, D, pocket vetoed 50%. Number 34. During Reconstruction, a division was created within the Republican Party over the process and enforcement of Reconstruction laws in the South. Supporters of Lincoln's former policies continued to call themselves Republicans, while others became known as Radical Republicans. Which of the following best describes the ideals of these Radical Republicans? A, an easy transition of the South back into the Union. B, protection of freedmen's rights. C, equality for poor white men. D, support of the solid South controlling Congress. Number 35. After the conclusion of the Civil War, the bloodiest and most divisive war in American history, the burden of political, social, and economic reconstruction was placed on Congress and the President. When referring to Reconstruction, many historians assert that the Union won the war but lost Reconstruction. While the social and economic goals of Reconstruction may not have been fully realized, the political goal of Reconstruction was successful and timely. Which of the following answer choices supports the idea that political Reconstruction was a success? A. Allow former Confederate leaders back into Congress. B. Create even representation in Congress between northern and southern states. C. Readmitting the South into the Union by allowing representatives back into Congress from southern states. D. Allow Democrats to control Congress. Number 36. What was the economic goal of Reconstruction? A. Place plantation owners back in power. B. Allow freedmen to work as sharecroppers and tenant farmers. C. Take land from former slave owners and give it to freedmen. D. Create an economic stability for freedmen in the South. Number 37. I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, do proclaim, declare, and make known to all persons who have directly or by implication participated in the existing rebellion, except that a full pardon is hereby granted to them, and each of them with restoration of all rights of property, except as to slaves, and upon the condition that every such person shall take and subscribe an oath, and thenceforward keep and maintain said oath inviolate, in which oath shall be registered for permanent preservation and shall be of the tenor and effect following to wit. Coming from the Proclamation of Amnesty and Reconstruction. Using the above quote, part of Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction included a proclamation of amnesty seen in the above document. This document granted forgiveness to Southerners who participated in what he referred to as a rebellion. In addition to granting forgiveness for the rebellion, he also promised to restore all rights and property to the people in the South. What exception did President Lincoln identify in his proclamation, and what condition had to be met? A. The system of slavery returned to the South, and the North was no longer allowed to interfere. B. The North had to issue a formal apology, and then the South would rejoin the Union. C. No slavery, and Southerners must take and keep an oath of loyalty. D. Slaves had to pay reparations, and Southerners had to allow black males the right to vote. Number 38. While political Reconstruction saw all formerly rebellious states readmitted into the Union, social Reconstruction was not seen as a success. Some historians believe that the failures of social Reconstruction made living conditions worse for African Americans than before the Civil War. Although it was never fully completed, what was the social goal of Reconstruction? A. To abolish slavery in the South and ensure equality for former slaves. B. To reestablish an agricultural-based economy in the South. C. To create Jim Crow laws. B. To have African Americans move north. Number 39. The successes of Reconstruction included the rise of African American communities and their enfranchisement, or the right to vote, equal protection under the law. This is largely due to what? A. The war recently ended and the South was following Lincoln's plan. B. Congress placing the U.S. military in the South to enforce Reconstruction. C. Congress supporting Johnson's Reconstruction plan. D. Government officials allowing Southern states to create black codes. Number 40. The passage of the black codes and the Jim Crow laws erased the gains that African American communities made during the early stages of Reconstruction. The implementation of these laws suppressed their rights as Americans for almost another century due to segregation and the actions of the groups like the Ku Klux Klan. It wasn't until the 1960s that the Jim Crow laws were repealed and black codes were outlawed by the federal government. Based on the passage above, which of the following is a true statement about the legacy of Reconstruction? A. It was successful in creating jobs for freedmen throughout the South and gaining equality. B. Allowed freedmen to work as sharecroppers and tenant farmers so they could have a prosperous life. C. The government took land from former slave owners and gave it to freedmen on what was 40 acres and a mule. D. It was considered a failure because home rule occurred and freedmen rights were restricted in the South. Number 41. In May of 1865, immediately following the assassination of President Lincoln, President Andrew Johnson and his administration created a plan for Reconstruction. President Johnson's plan for the reunification of Southern states was similar to Lincoln's, with the use of pardons and an oath of allegiance. What actions taken by President Johnson went against Lincoln's belief, hindering the success of Reconstruction and ultimately limiting the rights of freedmen? A. It required 50% of Southern voters to take the oath of allegiance. B. Allowed Jefferson Davis to remain as president of the Confederacy. C. Placed former wealthy slave owners back in power of the South. D. Vetoed the ratification of the 13th Amendment. Number 42. As a result of no representation from Southern states in Congress, the Republican Party quickly took control during and directly after the Civil War. A division emerged within the Republican Party during this time over the process of Reconstruction and the rights of former slaves in the American society. Who emerged as the leader of the Radical Republicans and is credited with ensuring the equality of freedmen? A. Thaddeus Stevens. B. Andrew Johnson. C. Edwin Stanton. D. Rutherford B. Hayes. Number 43. During the final year of the Civil War, efforts began in the government to devise a plan to reconstruct the divided nation. The process of readmitting formerly rebellious Confederate states and establishing financial stability in the devastated South created controversy and division within the government. This is seen with the Republican Party, with the members of the party identifying themselves as radical Republicans. What Reconstruction goal earned members of the Republican Party the title as radical? A. The ratification of the 13th Amendment. B. The execution of General Lee and other high-ranking Confederate officers. C. Universal black male suffrage. D. The immediate readmittance of Southern states to the Union. Number 44. Following the end of the Civil War, the agricultural-based economy in Southern states was devastated. After the ratification of the 13th Amendment, many freedmen faced having no place to live and no income, while Southern landowners struggled with the lack of laborers for their land. As a result, what economic system emerged in many Southern states? A. 40 acres and a mule and sharecropping. B. Indentured servants and tenant farming. C. Tenure of Office Act and indentured servants. D. Sharecropping and tenant farming. Number 45. In the 1868 presidential election, former Union General Blank won the election as a result of his popularity from winning the war. His reliance on his military success during the election became known as the Blank Campaign. A. Ulysses Grant, Bloody Shirt. B. William Sherman, Total War. C. George McClellan, Anaconda. D. Jefferson Davis, The Common Man.